This economy is on life support and it is flatlining. It's Sunday, April 24th, 2022, a very early Sunday morning. I usually don't make videos this early, but I am hitting the road with a buddy of mine. We have some business to attend to in Las Vegas, so we're heading out in a little bit, and I wanted to get this video out. And yes, I will be taking the camera with. A lot of people have been asking me to go to Vegas to really get a temperature check of what is happening in Las Vegas. So I will be there on business. I will be filming. We're going to check it out. We're going to see what's going on. Should be very interesting. But I wanted to get this video out before I hit the road. And a few things I want to talk about is last week markets were an absolute disaster. What do all of you think we're going to see Monday morning? Will the markets rebound? Will the plunge protection team, will the Fed continue to expand the balance sheet in order to bring these markets back on Monday? I don't know, but I think we're going to see more 1,000-point losses begin to happen on a more regular basis. Not saying that's going to happen on Monday, but we've seen this movie before. Down 1,000, back up 1,000, down 1,000, back up 1,000. So I have no idea what's going to happen, but we are beginning to see cracks in the dam. We are going to start seeing more days like the one that we saw on Friday, where the Dow Jones lost nearly 1,000 points. Worst day since, I think, June of 2020. But we have got big problems. And when you look at what's happening in the banking industry too, banks got absolutely destroyed on Friday. And we always hear that the regulators doing these pressure tests, the banks are fine, they're healthy, nothing's going to happen. And you look how fast these bank stocks fall. And you really got to question yourself with all the recklessness that has been taking place in the financial system. How safe are these banks? You look at the massive amount of commercial real estate sitting vacant, all these commercial mortgage-backed bonds, banks holding all this debt. How healthy can they be? And all of you know just as much as I do when it comes to going to a bank and the doors being locked, going to an ATM and the ATM not working. I shared with you last week, I went to my local bank. It was closed 2 days in a row. It's supposed to open back up tomorrow, but I have no idea. And many of you have been writing for months and months and months. You've been seeing the same thing with your banks and your ATMs, and it's troubling. And it really makes you think that if you needed to get to your money, could you get it? Many of you were writing me, telling me that you had trouble with withdrawing a couple $1,000s out of your bank accounts, just a couple $1,000s. The bank could not do it. And you think that if you had an emergency, you had to get to your bank and you had to withdraw $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, would your bank be able to do that transaction? Do they even have $10,000 or $15,000 to give to you? Now think about if we started seeing real trouble and people were really getting concerned, and we saw lines begin at banks and people withdrawing money. How long do you think until your bank is empty? These banks are not carrying a lot of cash, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you already know that. And you know, I made a comment last week in the video that I went to my bank to cash a check, and it was locked. And so I have this check, and now I had to drive 15 minutes farther to one of the branches, the only other branch in the area, to get this check cashed. And somebody wrote and said, well, I'm living in caveman days or whatever it was, that why didn't I just deposit the check through my phone? And the reason being is this, because I didn't want to. I like to walk into a bank with a check and put it in a human's hands, okay? I like to deal with a human being. And when I pay these service fees that I get every month from the bank, I expect to deal with a human being. What am I paying for? when I get these service fees, that I can't even walk into my own bank because it's locked, and I can't put a check in a human being's hands and have them cash it and put the cash right in my hands. What am I paying for? So the reason why I didn't take a picture of it and deposit is because I just didn't want to. I wanted to deal with a human being. I think I have that right. And these people who make comments like that, these are the same people who are going to be in very, very big trouble when their phones don't work. These are the people who are so dependent and trustful of technology that it's always going to be there for them. But it's going to be the same technology that won't allow them to withdraw their money when they need it. When they go to their phone and it doesn't work, or they can't access that bank account, or when they take that piece of plastic to the ATM and it doesn't work. When they go to the store, to the grocery store with that ATM or with that ATM card or that debit card or that credit card, and it's denied, those are the same people who believed in the technology. All it takes is some sort of cyber attack, a grid going down. How about a bail-in, ladies and gentlemen? If these banks get into trouble, do you think they have your best interest at heart? Do you think they would not take your money and lock the doors? If you believe that, you better think twice. But it's going to be these same people who are so dependent and trusting of this technology that will be the victims of it. And as I've always said, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And I'm not telling all of you to pull every cent out of the bank. I'm just saying, I think leave enough in there to pay the bills. If you have to leave more, spread it around in multiple banks, but don't leave all your eggs in one basket. Something is very, very wrong. And I think that this is a fabulous time to get out of the system. The system, no doubt, is melting down. The system is the Titanic. It is taking on water. It is going down. And you don't want to go down with it. A couple articles I want to share with you this morning that I was reading this weekend. FBI warns of targeted cyber attacks on food plants after mysterious rash of fires. This on the Hedge. I cannot stress the importance of preparation and food. If you have not begun to store food, you're putting yourself at risk. Right now, today, Sunday, go out and get yourself a little extra food. If you have the means, go buy some emergency food. Put some water away. You know, when you read articles like this, and it goes on, the FBI's Cyber Division published a notice this week warning about increased cyber attack threats on agricultural cooperatives, which comes at a time when a curious string of fires and explosions have damaged major food processing plants across the country. What is going on? Comment down below. This is very, very ominous. And as we continue to see more ominous events like this take place, and look, I think this is a real warning right here that things are really out of our control, that we are going to see cyber attacks and threats to our food supply. And we're going to continue to see food disruptions throughout this country. And people who are ignoring this are really taking a huge risk. I don't think we should ignore this. Again, I don't agree with everything the FBI puts out there, but I mean, they are warning of targeted cyber attacks on food plants. And look at the fires that have been taking place at multiple plants throughout the country right now. You can ignore this. I think it's pretty imperative right now to be storing as much food as you can. And I used to say have 30 days. I think minimally 60 days, maybe 90 days minimum. There is no excuse now to not be putting food away. This is so important. And, you know, I know there's always these people out there that say you can't eat gold, you can't eat silver. We get it. I understand that. That's why we say you better have security in order first, because if you can't protect your food and your water or your assets, somebody will just take them. Okay. So, you know, to the people out there that believe that, you know, food is the end all be all, it's very, very important, but can you protect it? Can you protect your food from somebody coming and taking it? because there's going to be a lot of hungry people out there. So I would worry about security first, then food, because if you can't protect it, somebody's taking it. But another thing to also realize is when we get back to food, food is very, very important. Without it, we die, right? But when the dust settles, and sooner or later, look, we have not even come near the bottom of this collapse. It's just beginning. It's going to get much worse. And it's going to be a while before we hit the bottom. But when the dust settles, when the dust clears, and we get back to some monetary system, whatever that might be, you better be holding real money like gold or silver. And this is my humble opinion. This isn't financial advice, but this is how I'm thinking, it's how a lot of people I know are thinking. When that dust settles, you're not going to take a can of beans or a bottle of water and go buy 10 acres of real estate. You're not going to go buy a house with a can of beans. This is why it's important right now to be buying real money, to be buying real assets while they're on sale, and having them for after this collapse, when the dust settles, when we get back to some monetary balance. You're going to need real money. Again, a can of beans is not going to buy you a car, a house, 10 acres, what have you. It will feed you. But don't you want to do more than just eat at that point? Once the dust settles, I want to have more than a can of beans and a couple bottles of water. I want to have real assets, real money, so that I can prosper, so I can take advantage of the coming sales. And so this is why I think you have to be very, very diversified, well-rounded, and have it all. Have security, have food and water, have some gold and silver, have barterable items, have a skill set, have as many types of preparations that you can, because this is stacking the odds in your favor. World Bank chief warns of food crisis due to the Russian-Ukraine conflict. He warned of a human catastrophe from a food crisis that could see millions forced into poverty. And this article coming also from The Hedge. Food prices were up 13% in March. And we are now watching a crisis within a crisis, where you have food disruptions, food shortages, and prices absolutely spiraling out of control. I remember when people told me a year ago, there will be no such thing as inflation. I remember when the Federal Reserve came out and said this was transitory. I remember when the Fed came out and said there was no inflation, that we needed inflation. We got big trouble, ladies and gentlemen. Be very, very cautious of who you're listening to. Right now, I would be walking very, very close to God, and I would be listening to my conscience. You know, right now, something is very, very wrong. And this nation is not prepared for a food crisis. It's not prepared for an economic crisis, and it is certainly not prepared for a social crisis. And we are watching a perfect storm form here. And this nation is not prepared for anything. This is going to be, no doubt, historic with what we are going to watch play out. It will be biblical. And so many people are going to be taken by surprise. And I'm not going to be surprised or shocked. Neither are you. We've been talking about this now for 2 to 3 years. And I know people just believe that if you predict something, if you see something coming like a bubble, it should just pop tomorrow. It should just pop in a month. It's not how the real world works. All of this has taken years to get to this point, but you could see it all play out since 2008 when they just papered over this nightmare, put a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, put their fingers in the dam, in the cracks of the dam. You could see that nothing got fixed in 2008, and it did not take a rocket scientist to figure this out, that these problems were not going away. Quite the opposite. These problems now have magnified into historic numbers, historic bubbles. They're not going away. The longer this persists, the worse this collapse will be, the harder hitting it will be, and the longer it will play out. This is going to be really a time of desperation and tragedy. And I know that there are people out there that just, this is really negative, it's scary, it's doom and gloom. Think positive, puffy white clouds, teddy bears and rainbows are going to save me. I wish you the best of luck if that's how you think. I've said this many times, if you know a storm, a tsunami is coming, you have a couple choices. You can stick around and get wiped out, or you can pack up and get out of the way and get to higher ground. I'm taking the second option there. I'm getting to higher ground and I'm getting out of the way of this storm. This thing is going to be catastrophic. And yet people believe nothing is going to happen. Now, I don't know. Again, I know that we have a lot of people with mental disorders now in America, a lot of people addicted to drugs, addicted to pharmaceuticals, and maybe this is having some sort of influence in their life. I don't know why people cannot see what is coming and what's going on right now. I mean, it is literally beginning to rain, and people believe that there's no storm. It's raining right now, and people believe that there's no storm coming. That's where we're at. Staring into the abyss, a very good article on the hedge this weekend, and just to paraphrase, it started out by saying this: so sorry, but you'll own nothing and be miserable. Oops, we mean happy. The economy is perched on the edge of an abyss, ladies and gentlemen. Ignoring it doesn't lessen the risk, it increases it. And that is so true. The more that people ignore it, the more this risk increases and the more it is going to affect these people ignoring it. Problems which aren't faced directly and addressed directly fester and rot the system within. It's like an infection. You cut your finger and it gets really red, and a couple days go by, it's getting really, really red and sore, and all of a sudden now it's really infected and oozing, and now it's spreading throughout your body. If you would have just addressed it the first day, cleaned it out, put some antibiotic on it, put a Band-Aid on it, kept it clean, no problem. But if you ignore that cut and allow it to keep getting dirty, and you don't treat it, and you allow the infection to spread, you go from a small cut to a life-threatening injury. And now you need major medical intervention, or you're going to die. And people just don't realize what is going on. This weekend, it's the second weekend of Coachella Fest. Hundreds of thousands of people in town, multi-millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars being spent, credit cards being run up, payday loans being run up, buy now, pay later plans being run up. And it amazes me time and time again how people just live for today. They do not want the music to stop. They don't want the party to stop. They want instant gratification, satisfaction today. They don't want to hear about tough times. They don't want to hear anything that disrupts their lifestyle, anything that's negative, anything that threatens fun. And these people are going to have such a difficult time coming when all this hits. This isn't going away, ladies and gentlemen. It is not going away. By dismissing problems, ignoring them, or just papering over them, all it does is make things worse. The cliff edge is crumbling faster than we realize. People are underestimating the severity of this economy, ladies and gentlemen. They are underestimating the danger. It is going to have a huge effect on housing, the bond market, the stock market, the economy throughout. You're going to see a lot of people lose their jobs. You're going to see a lot more businesses go under. We saw hundreds of thousands of businesses shuttered forever in the last 2 years because of the health crisis. You're going to see many, many more shuttered because this economy is rotting within, and nobody is doing anything to help it, nothing to resurrect it in any type of fashion. This economy is on life support and it is flatlining. And I don't think that there is any cure now because we are past the point of no return. There is no medicine, no drug, no cure because this economy has already gone over the edge and people are going to go over the edge with it and they don't even realize it yet. They don't understand the severity, how many jobs, businesses, wealth that is going to be wiped off the planet Earth when this thing really begins to accelerate. And this is, as I've said in the past, death by 1,000 cuts. But it's going to begin to accelerate. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Fed does next. May, June, serious rate increases. And people will say, well, 50 basis points is nothing, 75 basis points is nothing. And other people understand what this is going to do to the economy and to the stock market. This is not a normal stock market, nor is it a normal economy. We've had 0% interest rates for over a decade. This thing is so fragile, just by 25 basis points has already slowed it down. Just the talk of 50 basis points rocked these markets on Friday. Dow Jones down nearly 1,000 points. What happens when the Fed actually begins to take action? What happens if they have to get more aggressive? A lot of you believe that's not going to happen. I could be completely wrong. You may be right. But if you are right, the consequences are going to be just as bad, if not worse. So continue preparing this weekend. Take this Sunday, take some time, go to the store, and make sure you get more supplies. Foreign demand for U.S. Treasuries collapses just as Fed launches quantitative tightening. The Federal Reserve holds more Treasury notes and bonds than ever before. And I have a question. Please comment down below. Maybe you know the answer to this. As they begin to shrink the balance sheet, who's going to buy up all these treasuries and bonds? Comment down below. I want to know who is going to buy all these treasuries, all of these bonds. It's going to be very interesting. After years of quantitative easing, now they're going to have to pull money out of the system. Low interest rates, cheap money, and lending, the good times, the party, it's all coming to an end, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to begin pulling money out of the system, not putting money in. People who didn't have to work, didn't have to pay rent, bought the big screen TVs, went out and bought a new car, just live life recklessly, not having to pay college tuition debt. Nobody's having to pay bills. We still have 1.1 million homes in forbearance. We still have thousands, maybe millions of people not even paying rent. How many businesses aren't paying rent right now? This whole thing is on life support. And I cannot stress the importance that every one of you stay on path, continue to prepare, continue to walk close to God, continue to get in better physical, mental, spiritual, and financial shape. Have a wonderful Sunday. I look forward to speaking with all of you very, very soon. God bless, take care, and be safe.